Mike Gill and Crash.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Crash is feeling a little better.
Yeah, I'm feeling better.
Well, I'm hoping the people out there is seeing that we're moving in pieces. Each time we get closer, we're going to take you back to what we've just done in our last three podcasts to kind of fill you in what we said was going to happen and what's happening. And it's happening even now. And we're going to try to explain it to you. This isn't by luck. This is mathematical. This is what 21 years told me and how to track them down. You're seeing the Pandora's box open every day now. That's what you're seeing. Okay, so let's hit the first one. But so I want you to understand where we're going with this.
Give me a
The
second.
first one,
I am
opening the door.
my think my screen froze up. My iPad's having issues. So,
Okay. All right.
um,
So when you can, but let me
there we go.
explain.
It's coming.
Okay. There was the door, right? Now, if you remember what that door was, there was three principal factors that I want you to understand and get from that. One factor was that Arizona meeting that would incriminate the DOJ in Flynn, not just in the brokered convention, but the actual audit of Arizona being corrupted to make it look like there was fraud. Okay, so that was one piece. We brought up Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson could be, once you've opened the door, he could blow it up. He could get it out to the public. So that was critical. And then this other issue of the three that I want you to keep in your head was Medicaid and Medicare. What was the Pandora's box? What did I tell you that was plundering America? Remember, that was the next part. Hit the next one. Then it was plundering America, that they were stealing your trillions from Medicaid and Medicare. What was I telling you? For all these years, they were controlled by drug cartels, mafia, the Greek mafia. You're going to hear about the Russian mob in a minute. So again, the issues in the first one also came to this one before that. What's the move? Well, think about this. You had Vance saying Trump will get impeached as directly as possible. He will get impeached. And I believe that. Now, the next one was the plundering of America. That's when Trump comes out and tells you about Medicaid and Medicare. He brought up in that podcast, we spoke of, ready? Minnesota, who already got busted. Waltz, the governor, is afraid for his freedom. We find out that it's owned by forms of mobs, these agencies, in that case, Somalians. But believe me, they're all taking a piece. Now we also brought up these highlighted states that had Medicaid fraud coming up and Medicare. They were California, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Now, right in between Massachusetts and New Hampshire, Massachusetts and Maine,
Yeah,
is New Hampshire.
yeah.
Is New Hampshire with the 935 billion that came offshore, called the Pandora Papers, into the laundering network. Even the entities that I gave you, which included the hospitals and pharmacies and treatment centers, would be the money coming back that got cleaned from across the country. So when they send over $1 trillion, remember now, they only asked for 200 billion for the war. We've got 5 times that coming in from corrupt money back into the country that gets distributed back to these politicians, these governors, these drug cartels. That's the system of front and back. So again, if you follow the money that came back is being hidden in the state. That's why Sununu is so important, and a governor. Remember, this fraud is state and federal. The governor in each state is involved in this theft. Okay, that's how it works. Those are the licensing angles of this. And then it's the congressman. You don't think Omar is involved in this? So we're going to form this, though. But I want you to see it coming together. And before I move forward, I want you to remember this. Critical. A couple months, maybe less ago, I did a podcast and I told you that the Sinaloa cartel was taken out. Now, this is before any arrests. This is before anybody's talking Sinaloa cartel. But I knew the fentanyl business was taken over. I see the depth of the Sinaloa cartel across this country. Well, if you take them out of the business of heroin, you may have a problem. And those people will talk for a deal. What's going on in Mexico? Why are they fighting? Because they lost the fentanyl and heroin business over here. Now, what happened after I said this? Remember, 2 weeks, taking out the Sinaloa cartel. This bus in 4 parts of this country, important bus, Miami, which we're going to talk about in a minute, seems like they're under the Medicaid window again. Oh, Texas. Guess what? They're being investigated for Medicaid too. So where you busted this cartels is where they're stealing. And we've got Phoenix, Arizona. And ready? Franklin, New Hampshire, with its 8,000 people, is ground fucking zero. And between them, Massachusetts and Maine are on scrutiny for Medicaid and Medicare. Where do you think it's coming from? So my point being is, I told you the domino was Medicaid and Medicare. Once you've got that, then you find you get the governor, you get the state, you get distribution, you get who's involved with it. You reel it back into the politicians in the Senate and the Congress and take out the governor. Now, I knew that was going to happen, which is why all of a sudden these raids are happening. Now, I also knew it was going to involve Bitcoin, moving money. You're going to find that's how they moved it. So how did Bitcoin get taken down by half? Why? Because they knew this was coming. They knew that the Bitcoin was used in this money laundering, protected by the DEA and the DOJ. And I want you to remember now, as I'm going on, the target has to be the DOJ. You have to take out what protects them. The DOJ was sitting on 6 million emails of Epstein, never showed you a one voluntarily. They are the heart of this. I'm going to tell you of an entrapment claim. But freeze this into your heads. Mike likes trying to save Trump with the entrapment, and you're going to hear the entrapment. Oh, that's in play. But what you've got to understand is the entrapment incriminates the Department of Justice and Flynn. You get Department of Justice, you get everybody. Then all of a sudden, the Epstein files open up with everything. Everyone gets exposed, including the laundering network for these people. So in other words, I'm playing to get them all. I'm not playing for a replacement player, and business goes on as usual. There's no winning in that. Okay, let's hit it. So let's go kind of through these, but I wanted to remind you, let you know what's happened since. Okay. This guy, now, last podcast, and I've made moves on my own and working with the move to say Tucker Carlson. So I understand what we could do with Tucker Carlson promoting it. And what he's doing is he is lining himself up to run for president. Now, what did the CIA do? They're investigating Tucker Carlson working with Iran. You know where the evidence came from? Laura Loomer. Laura fucking Loomer, who recently said she was debriefing Trump, and her compadre, James O'Keefe, used the same terms, debriefing Trump. Hit it. We don't remember where these pinheads came from. They invaded my company state of corruption. They went into my company with Aaron Day, fixed my election, gave up all the witnesses for the cartel, but most importantly, derailed me on the track of their money, of the Pandora's box. All of which time Aaron Day was sent, and what did we find out was he was a Bitcoin business genius, wrote a book, the whole thing, about money laundering. He's tied to James O'Keefe. O'Keefe, Laura Loomer, and Alex Jones is directly tied to Israel. The biggest fundraisers in Israel, Bob Shillman. What did Laura Loomer say? Oh, she got paid very generously with Shillman. Show them where Shillman is next. They've got a nice little statue of him in Israel. Now you think about that. That's who they are. And has not Tucker Carlson been going after AIPAC in Israel? Did he not call up AIPAC with Cruz and Huckabee? So in other words, you know the targets are. That's the target back. Those are those same people. But that's how you're going to know. But we got James O'Keefe becoming a player again, debriefing a president of the United States that's tied to Israel and the Mossad and blackmail and extortion. Remember, last podcast, they're already on Tucker. Next, what else happened in that podcast that we brought up? Oh, I remember. We brought up the Medicaid, right? The fraud in Medicare. Well, let's see where it's done in the last week. We only left you alone for a few days. It says here, Gavin Newsom rips Oz. What? I can't read that.
Well, it says Gavin Newsom rips Dr. Oz's cosplay as fraud fighter after Medicaid SARS threat to probe California. So they're into California now.
Okay. So what we've got California under investigation. We got Newsom under investigation. It turns out just in Los Angeles, they're moving 60% of the fentanyl for the whole state in one community. Why fentanyl? Why hospice? Because it's legal for a hospice to have the fentanyl. You got it? So in other words, it all is connected. And now the governor, just like in Minnesota, then the governor, in California, then the governor. Now, they were blackened out on that. Get it? So in other words, California is under attack. And now we're talking, no, not thousands, not millions, but billions of fentanyl hitting the street. Los Angeles, hospice fraud reaches billions as Medicare providers scam federal system with fake companies. When you do that, do a little wider for me. Fake companies, what did I tell you? They put them up as fronts. They don't have a desk. They don't have a pencil. What you want to know is not the patients. You want to know who owns the businesses, scams, fake companies. Who do you think owns them but drug cartels? And what are they taking? Fentanyl. And they're taking it out of hospice care. You're paying for all of it. And what did I tell you? These treatment centers were distribution. That's what that is too. So when you're seeing Los Angeles all drugged out, you're buying the drugs, boys and girls, and you're going broke. Just as I said, this is Pandora's box, and I told you it was in every state. Did it crash?
Mike, I had shown you this one out of turn, so I don't know if you had anything else to add to that. I can't see them on my
screen. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay,
that's all the same. So Oz is saying Newsom, and they're going after again.
So that's okay. The next one that you had then. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's all right. That should be Texas, right?
Yeah, that's Texas.
Okay, so now we're spreading. Now we're not in Los Angeles. Now let's not forget, Texas was one of the states that I caught with the Sinaloa cartel. Houston with 2.4 billion. Now, do you remember what Abbott was the governor? Remember what Abbott said like 2 days after Minnesota? He says, I've got to investigate my state now. Oh, and 3 weeks later, we get the Russian mob. We get billions again. Billing schemes. He's even gone as far as saying it's the Russian mob. So the thing here is, do we believe he just came up with this investigation in the last 3 weeks and we're in the front fucking pages? Or do you think he was sitting on it? Maybe Trump gave him a heads up. Listen, this shit's coming up. It's better for you to turn around and say you're investigated than have it come up, like big surprise for Newsom.
A surprise. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, a big surprise.
Right. Surprise my ass. Now, but Texas was the destination, Sinaloa cartel, right? Distribution. It's the same distribution, folks. Now, hit it. You know where else will we go? Florida. Well, wait a minute. You mean Florida getting hit too, like Texas? With the Sinaloa drug cartels that they busted? Yes. They called it horrific. Theft in the billions. Don't forget who was on there too. Franklin, New Hampshire. Who's on the list? Mass and Maine. And you know where Tucker lives? Maine. Colonel McGregor lives in Maine too. You can't tell me you don't know it's the drug cartels that own Maine. In fact, why did I know the Sinaloa cartel was being taken out? Because I knew the Chinese gangs and cartels were coming in to replace them. They own most of Maine. They followed Penn National to launder their money in Maine when I stopped them in New Hampshire. What did they buy? Chinese buy in New Hampshire? Oh, that's right, the water supply. Brilliant. You know what Trump let into the country? 600,000 Chinese people of college age. 600,000? Now you think about that. We've got a new enemy. Who manufactured fentanyl? But the Chinese. So, as I told you, this was to be a domino, right, for the Medicaid. You're seeing the domino. Now we've got states to come, Florida, and they were drug-related states. You don't think drug-related state or a city like Los Angeles? That's the west coast of drugs. They were using the hospice care. I mean, each week it gets more obvious. Listen, we didn't have this last week. So when I'm telling you opening the door, look how fast that door is moving. And we're not even done yet of moving the door. Hit it, Gresh. Now, I explained to you how this worked. That's me running for governor in 2016, telling everybody in that panel, as House of Representatives, I was putting him in the jail. Half of them work for the cartel. How does it go in? It comes out of their hospitals that they own. Oh, what are we finding out with Medicaid and Medicare? You're going to find out the pharmacies and the hospitals, the doctors, they're all fucking in on it. They turn around and get the Medicaid bill passed, right? So the feds pay for the drugs, for your children, for the theft. Then they slip it into the banks that they own, the cartels own, and it goes offshore. That's how it comes back clean. That's the Pandora's Papers and why it came through New Hampshire. Hit it.
And that video is on your state of corruption, New Hampshire YouTube.
Yes. I'm going to tell you, one day, all those old videos, not only are they going to be driven home so you understand what was happening, when it was happening, but you're looking at history. Because if the rest of this goes the way I see it going, the third door, meaning you're going to get off your ass, especially when you see the size of this. You're just seeing, listen, California, big state, Florida, Texas, big states, horrific, trillions. Now that's what we're talking about. Hit it. Now, what this is saying is, I simply asked AI, it's how much. So the thing here is with the Bitcoin. Now I've told you that is what broke Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin was afraid to get traced back to the cartels. So what are they telling us here? That's exactly what's happening. Each and every bust gets associated with Bitcoin, the moving of money, of hidden money, undescribed money. That's what it's saying. So in other words, not only we write about the mechanics, and then the way in was through Medicaid and Medicare, and you're seeing that, but the trip and the use of the money laundering network of that starts with Bitcoin. And then you're going to find out it goes into the banking commissioner, the secretary of state. You're going to then go from there into Congress and the Senate. Senator Shaheen and Hassan work for the fucking cartel. Always has. Bill Shaheen, the husband, was from the DOJ. What did the DOJ? Protect the cartel. It's that simple. It all fits, or I hit it, but it's also why Bitcoin, what is it, 68 today, right? Meaning anybody who reinvested didn't make any money or lost money. It means that when I said it pops up and down, it does it in a margin. I think they call it a channel. Sell off, let them buy some back, sell it back, but keep in a range so they don't see what's going on. But they're bleeding all their money back. And that's how they do it. Again, how they showed you. First, taking their money, going to their banks, getting it offshore. See, when I gave you Penn National, they were betting offshore on fixed races. They owned the betting facilities in Singapore and the Ukraine. They were paying themselves back with their money. The difference is they made $5 million on a bet. It came back all clean. They didn't lose $5 million. They transferred the $5 million they had offshore. And as they're selling you make-believe money in Bitcoin, they're buying businesses, automobile dealerships. And what are you finding out about some of these Medicaid busts? These people own businesses to launder. If they can sell a car cheaper than you can, because they're in the business to lose money, you're out of business. This is attacking the core, the business core of this country as we're going broke. Hit it. We're under attack. Now, I said Maine, right? And Mass. I told you the Chinese had moved out the Sinaloa cartel. Less problems. Now, do you see that big red spot at the top there, which is the state of Maine? That's the land that's owned by China. You understand? All red by China. Now, do you know There's not very many people that live in that area. You also know that it borders Maine, what could be a pathway into this country, which is what I'm saying is that's the replacement. And that's what they do. So when they're finding needles in Maine and they find the Penn National, after you've seen me block them in New Hampshire, they're there for money laundering. And now they're bringing in the Chinese. So listen, with the Sinaloa cartel going, you're going to have at least as many deaths through fentanyl. How many of those deaths through fentanyl did your tax money, for instance, in Los Angeles, pay for? So when you see those streets and those zombies, it's your money. Okay, Crash. Now, you got Newsom crying, you got Waltz crying, right? The governors are all going to cry, right? Because they sign off on it all. That's Governor Sununu Anagos, the head of the cartel. What business is he in? Casino business, part of the cleaning business. Right. This guy owned rehabs and strip joints, detention centers, and casinos. I mean, it's a tight walk, hit it. But this is how you get the governors. This is how you start this with each and every state. They own treatment centers. Who was paying up Medicaid and Medicare? What do they use in treatment centers? Sometimes lower doses. They put those people on the street, the same drug addicts, the same people who came out of the youth detention centers. They're trying to rape and beat them, and then they put them into these treatment centers that they become distribution and the money of Medicaid. Now, remember now, this is 16. 10 years later, you know that's all true. What they owned was in the Pandora Papers. Auto Fair, in it. Dartmouth Hospital, in it. Granite State Recovery, in it. What is that, just luck? Hit it. It's following their money. It's following what those trillions they stole. Transition Center. There's the governor, and there's Anagos again. That is Medicaid and Medicare fraud. And you know the irony of this? It's for the people they put on the streets. It's the ones that are sleeping in tents, families. They profit by their misery again. We addict them, profit. If they go homeless, profit. In business, it says bite of the same apple. These assholes are doing it. And Sununu owns a fucking airline? How did that happen? I got an idea. Let's see what else we got, just so you know how this works. Okay. We're going to a place here. Remember, there's a third thing in this. There was Trump, entrapment, that Arizona meeting. Do you know what's happening? Like now, they're auditing the 2020 presidential election in Arizona. They're taking all the ballots, everything's come back. Now, why is Flynn mortified by me? And Ariel, how does he know that? Remember, he was posting a lot of this stuff that I'm telling you here now. He gave you Medicaid, he gave you O'Keefe. He gave you Planet Fitness in the distribution and drugs. I was their blackmail instrument. That's what it is here. You know what Flynn's afraid of? He's afraid of Arizona. He's afraid of December 18, 2020. He's afraid of what he knows that I have. And he used his blackmail and didn't tell you. Hit it. No. Now, this is what I'm telling you. Election records handed over. Trump basket, FBI, Maricopa County, right? Could be partial flawed, experts say. Fatally flawed. Okay. Interesting now. Okay, now, let's think about this. It was the third part of our last podcast. You notice how they're all kind of jumping into place? That's what happens when you're ahead. So now Trump's going after the election records of all places, Maricopa County. And that's where I put the Arizona meeting together. That's when I met with Liz Harris and Shelby Bush. And they talked about Stacy Burke, who Stacy Burke was working with Flynn, then he was held by Flynn while this was going on. And what was Flynn doing? He was corrupting the audit to make it look corrupt. He was, just like Tina Peters was doing, working for the same General Flynn. In that meeting where there are tapes and witnesses, you find out that it was Flynn with the brokered convention, working with Sununu. We've got Flynn confessing with Liz Harris and Shelby Bush that they created the audit fraud, that they were working with Flynn and Patrick Burns, and that was the plan. And that's the plan on December 18th. They sold Trump the insurrection lawsuit. At the same day, they were reaching out to me. Why? Because I could fuck that up, just as I fucked up the brokered convention in Arizona. So you ready, boys and girls? Thinking caps. So what's Trump doing? How many times did they audit that? How many lawsuits was based on that evidence? We got Burns, who didn't come up with shit. We got Powell, Giuliani. They all took deals, didn't come up with shit. We even got Fox. We even got Mary Fanning, who was feeding all this bullshit and the author of setting Trump up, working with Lindell and mentioned 54 times in his lawsuit. So even says Ann Vandersteel, who's sweating her ass off, because she's tied to Flynn and the same audit, the same scam that they were working for with the DOJ. So remember, the game is the DOJ. Now, Trump put this together to set Flynn up. If Trump gets out on entrapment, it proved that Flynn set him up with the DOJ. What would that audit prove with those witnesses? Exactly that. You make it a little bigger? Behind the FBI probe election deniers. These from both perspectives. The deniers are saying, well, what are you doing again? The ones who believe it are saying, hey, let's keep a look at it. And what they both don't get, it's Trump's exit. Remember Vance? He will be impeached. So I don't know how much this show goes on with Iran has to do with impeachment. But I can tell you him getting impeached and from whatever happens thereafter can't be pleasant.
Yeah. Now, you're saying that what I'm getting out of this is they don't need to be the FBI. First of all, we don't trust the FBI, but this is kind of like a cover that they're not really, they're doing this to kind of go over everything again to bring in.
They're doing this to set up Flynn with the DOJ.
Right, to bring that into play.
Right. Trump has to tell the world I was entrapped. I listened to Flynn and Powell and Burns. So he was in on the insurrection working with Flynn. Now we find out from that audit, and believe me, they're all fucking listening. All right? They're all listening. We may only get 2,000 here. They're all listening. How about this? Everything we've said has come out. If they didn't listen, they'd be the biggest dummies on earth. So if I'm saying entrapment is Trump's way out, then we find out that he threatens General Flynn and Alex Jones. What do you think he threatened him with?
Right.
him being set up. Then you're going to the evidence. The evidence that's been looked on multiple times. You'd be a fool to think you're going to find something different.
Different. Right. That's what I'm saying. Nothing's going to change from the first.
Except for this time, you're looking out for the entrapment. You find Flynn, you find Harris, you find Burke, you find Shelby Bush, you get the tape. You even talk to a Matthew Tuckeroni. Now, they're all trying to save Trump. But Trump, by turning around and saying, hey, you know what all this evidence shows me? I was entrapped. That's why the evidence. It's not to say the same thing. It was to say the thing you weren't looking for by the people who were responsible for doing it. So we're not having Flynn look for Flynn anymore. That's why Flynn's saying now it's a coup.
Yeah. So what
Right.
happens to Trump? Okay, so Trump then, let's say he he claims entrapment. That doesn't mean he's innocent. What happens to Trump at that
Well,
point?
this is what I would say
They
then.
impeach him because of his.
No, I don't think they can't impeach him for insurrection. So everything that Jack Smith said and done is gone.
Okay.
Because Jack Smith was working for the DOJ. Jack Smith would have been working with Powell and Flynn, which Powell came from the DOJ. But what happens then is, so the real question is, what happens to the Department of Justice?
Okay.
What controls all this?
Right.
The Department of Justice gets exposed. Trump, by saying entrapment, is also saying that they acted corruptly. The DOJ and Flynn were responsible for this insurrection. This was a setup on him. So all of a sudden, now we've got the Department of Justice under our microscope going, what else have you did? Well, they were protecting all these cartels in Medicaid and Medicare fraud. You want to know if they had that evidence? You seen me giving it to them. They documented that evidence. They gave it to the AG, which is why they came to try to buy me off. Because they knew that that was the play. So the DOJ now is responsible for the insurrection. We as a people know the Department of Justice is ground zero of corruption.
But how are we going to fight that? They're going to just do something to get out of it. I mean, they're in charge.
They're in charge, but something like this is building.
Okay.
Building. And you also have Trump going, hey, they did it.
Yeah.
That is the president of the United States saying they're corrupt. Now, he may not have another move because once you get to the impeachment, he might be fucked. So by him pulling that out is as much as telling the DOJ, I'm going to rat your fucking ass out too.
Well, I think we still have Patrick Burns and I think Lindell's are still open for the court cases for Dominion.
Right.
So who knows what can come from that, from discovery.
Yeah, I don't trust that. I trust the chess game that we're watching.
There's a reason they're still open.
Of course there is. Because it's the way in.
Yeah.
Powell and Lindell signed deals. Mark Meadows signed deals too.
And Giuliani and Jenna Ellis.
Exactly right. You know how fast they'll spin? How fast did Bongino and Patel spin?
Right.
That fast. But the thing here is our game is the mission is the DOJ. Trump will be forced to push that out. And how he's entrapped, which is why all these podcasters, CIA, Flint podcasters, are losing their minds. Why all of a sudden Trump's the Antichrist, right? Look at Russell. Oh, Trump. Shut the fuck up. You were a Flynn Trump guy the whole of them taking money, right? So what we're doing is looking where all this falls, all that falls, including it exposes the CIA, which was sent by the DOJ. So we're back there again. We're back there again with the money laundering, with the IRS. We're there with protecting drug cartels. We're there, we're part of laundering their money and protecting Medicaid and Medicare theft. I like our chances of the American people go, they all got to go.
Right.
And that includes the Attorney General, that Bondi, Blanche. They all got to go. You got to break it down. Then, with these Medicaid things, you go after the Senate and the Congress, who's being blackmailed by the DOJ. Now you're saying, hey, there's the money trail from this Medicaid. That went to you. We're talking to you. So we take them out of the clutch of the DOJ, which also gets into the Mossad. So it's a path. Now, if we can open the Epstein file, every single one of them, let that be a determination whether President Trump gets removed,
Right.
articled out. Because if he is a bad man, he's in there. And I tend to think that he is. And that other 3 million, if this is the 3 million they showed you, the 3 million they didn't would have to be worse.
Right.
So where we are is we've got them boxed in. Trump went for those audit things because of that with Flynn. He might have even done the same with Georgia. But we know what's in Arizona. I'm in a tape that spells it out. I mean, there is no getting away. I knew it then. I knew it to have it then. You see? Now that's ahead. All right, what else do we have, Crash? Now, who was in that room? The pinhead in the middle there, Tuckeroni. So the nobody's become a star. The star with Dorr, the star with Peters, now this program, right? Now he was in the meeting. He was a scumbag. He's the one that was sending me, tying notes to my door and sending me text messages to be murdered. Right, that asshole. And all of a sudden now he's the darling of the media because he was in that room. You get it? You know why he never came up with the tape? Because you would pay for that tape. You see all those people lining up behind him? That's why. And what is he against Trump? Because he was always the Flinster. And Flynn was going to pay more. What's Trump going to do? Oh, you were there to fuck me? Well, what can I do you for?
Did
See,
you watch that video, that show with him on? Did you watch that?
the one I just showed you now?
Yeah, yeah.
Only 5 minutes.
Okay, what was the topic of discussion
The
there?
topic was removing Trump. The topic was turning point.
Do you think they got to him? Well, I know they got to him, but do you think they're telling him that he has to change the subject or something, or do another narrative to get away from
Flynn's, no, Flynn's telling him what to do.
Okay.
Blow that up. Remember, now it's Trump and Israel. Trump and Israel. And if you see the division and turning point, Trump and Israel, right? I mean, she's for Trump, and they're saying Charlie was breaking up with Israel, didn't want to take their money, and they're the ones who killed him. That's what they're even saying.
Uh-huh.
So you can even see Flynn now and his people. It's Flynn or Trump, and Trump with Israel. You see, and then they throw in the Pandora's Papers. So in other words, they're moving to that separation. And if Flynn comes up with immunity, Powell and Giuliani, they'll bury Trump. He'll be the key witness, and Trump will never get out the fact that he was working with the DOJ. Now, if Trump gets that evidence from that room,
you mean from the meeting?
Right, meaning that room with the Arizona meeting where we had that tape. If he gets that, he wins.
Right.
Here's the separation. Then we go to Flynn. Ready? Was Trump taking himself out in the brokered convention?
Right.
No. Now, what do you got, shithead? And then the audit. If we believe you were taking him out then, we get a hard time believing you were taking him out then too. And what'd you keep from him? You kept from all the Pandora's box and Medicaid and Medicare that could have proved that the Senate and Congress are corrupt states by running corruptly and why we're trillions in debt. Now, what did they say? And even Burke said that at the time. Your evidence could have leveraged Senate and Congress, and that's what they were doing. And then they said, well, Trump got stopped. What if Trump got stopped because they didn't give it to him? or didn't know what it was. They were afraid that I was going to save them, not to save him, but to save you by exposing the Congress and the Senate for this Medicaid, which is what's happening now. We've gone full circle. All that's gone on is I keep spending more and more of my years left. But everything that I said then that could be done, that's why December 18, 2020 is in use right now. That's in play. What's extra in play is me going to that Arizona audit. Now you think about it. There is no more important evidence that Trump has to save his ass than that. But it's also the way to expose the DOJ. And if you don't get them, they replace him. You trust Vance?
No.
Right.
I'm just worried. I keep looking at it. I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but
no,
I keep seeing the DOJ is going to do everything they can to save their own ass. So I don't see how anything will come out about the DOJ in public.
It will. I'll tell you why. You ready?
Yeah.
Now, if I was someone to do this, and I was running for governor and I was going to do this, I'd be sitting down with the DOJ, multiple people, agents, all of them, front, top to bottom. And you know what we say? Who wants to go home? We're going to have a deal, a generous deal, an immunity deal, a very forgiving deal. But you're going to tell us everything.
Okay.
Because
well, who's going to do that, though?
Someone just like me. I'll volunteer, but I'm running out of time here.
Yeah.
But there'll be somebody. And I'm hoping I can help. And Tucker Carlson's not a moron. He can put that together. Yeah. And I can help him. And what I would simply say to them is listen, we're going to forgive you. Unless you lie to us. Unless you give us everybody. If we find out you didn't give us everybody, your ass is ours. You'll spend the rest of your life in jail. So in other words, and what do we know about these people? They're scumbags. They'll turn on each other in a second.
Yeah.
It can be done. The thing what we've got to do is the people have got to stand, and they turn around and say, look, we're broke here, and this is how they were stealing it. This is who was stealing it, the worst of us, cartels, child traffickers, politicians. This is who were cheating us, and we can get our money back. What do they own? Casinos, racetracks? Interesting. Hospitals, pharmacies. We turn around and take everything they have. They took our trillions, we take them back. And we put that on our national fucking debt.
Right. I have a problem with the people in taking a stand, because until it actually affects people personally, like their financial or their bombing.
It is now.
Yeah, but not. No, wait. You don't understand what I'm saying. Like, it has to be devastating. Like, they have to cut off their funds, or they have to stop payment of. I mean, like, they can't use their credit card, or they have to do something that's drastic to make people want to stand up at this point, because we are so.
Well, what I would tell you is this is more drastic than they let you understand. You, as a country, you're broke. Really broke.
That, but we still are up. Our heads above water.
Listen.
As people.
I believe half this country isn't heads above water. Okay, that's one. How about this? They can't buy a house.
No, but
the employment numbers
they're still able to go out and drink at the bar and buy their pack of cigarettes.
Some are.
Yeah.
But less and less. You got AI. That's going to hit you. You got robotics going to hit you.
I'm just saying. I'm just...
You got I know, but you've got a declining economy. But listen, what did I do but read the economy? I became a wealthy man because I did it better than anybody else. We are headed to poverty.
Right.
The gross national product was 0.07. Listen, when you hit zero, that constitutes for a recession.
Right.
You do it 3 months in a row,
The
you're
depression.
officially in a depression.
Yeah.
We are that close. We turned around, already had we're knocking on the door for our first number. And what happened? Oh, interest went from the high fives to the middle sixes. Uh-oh. You want to talk about oil taking a pop? Your 10-year bond taking a pop. Why the pop? Because you're not going to be able to pay it back. Bad risk. Why the pop? Interest rate's going to go higher and higher and higher because of that. Now you're not going to buy a house. You're not going to qualify for a house, right? So in other words, that's a factor in. You're not going to have people buying houses, building houses. You're not going to have truck drivers. It's ongoing. It's across the board. So that's why this timing is so important. And you find out why you're broke is because they were stealing and cheating you. That's a good place to start you off. And then while the other people who are suffering are going to understand this is why we are.
Right.
Even with people who need health care, that need Medicaid, they can't get it. They're broke. All of a sudden, they're taking off on it. So the people who really needed help will be abandoned. They won't be happy. When you find out that Social Security has been robbed and they're not going to pay you, you're going to have a problem. So,
Yeah.
understanding is where it starts. When you start understanding that all these podcasters were lying to you, what are we playing? 5 Degree Chess again?
Yeah.
Enoch, that magnificent. When Enoch was something about his angels were having sex with real women, and that became a problem with the Bible. Are you shitting me? We're back to that bullshit again. You're not going to be mad at all the people who lied to you. The same ones that telling you this is on Trump was the ones selling you on Trump and driving around on a bus doing it.
I mean, now most
Oh,
of them are just taking the news and spinning off of the headlines off of fake news. When we spent 4 years saying fake news got to, we can't trust fake news. Now they're using it to do their podcast. So I don't know. But
I met most of them. I was on the show for the
yeah,
first time, figured them out. Michelle Moore, for instance, they don't know shit. They can't put together anything. They had one saying, say this and say that. So
right.
they were talking about sovereignty and wave watches, which turned out to be bullshit too. They kept them in a framework.
And gold
Now
eye.
they don't know what to say. Right. You think these guys had ideas? So when I'm reading the board, you think those assholes could? Remember, my time with Juan was frustrating because he couldn't understand what the fuck I was even talking about. And he said, "You're fearless leaders." Listen, it was all planned. It was all. That's why they regurgitate the same fucking bullshit, the same, and they're going back to the same fucking scams. So when you realize that that was CIA and they robbed you, and hopefully you find out when they sold you gold, and all of a sudden prepayment penalty taken out, and you lost your half of your retirement, you may have a problem. What I'm saying is the accumulation of the truth, of you seeing it actually happening, you being affected, then I think there's a movement. And there's a third door. And there's someone like Tucker Carlson who's smart enough to say, I'll walk through that truth door. We'll keep it to the truth. We'll get him stand up to attacks. You got to have courage. Maybe. I'd give him a chance. Let's see what he's got. But courage doesn't mean coming in and coming out. You've got to go into this and say, I've accepted losing my life or giving my life up. You've got to fight this like it's your last fight. That you accept all the consequences. These are all come. How many people have you seen change? Not just Blandino and Patel. How about Gabbard? I mean, there was a side of me that said, you know what, maybe this woman is a good woman and she's protecting our troops, and she was a soldier. She ain't that now. I mean, what the fuck they do? The brain transplants? I mean, they,
Neuralink.
remember I said to you, and I've said many times, they all flip.
Hmm.
Remember me saying it? They all flipped. Friends, family, flip, flip, flip. Whatever these monsters tell you, and I'm sure it'd be like me working on immunity deals with the monsters. No fucking around, right to the point. And it's your ass. And they look at this and the DOJ and the size of it and all, and say, hey, my ass.
Right.
Every time. You get to turn around and say, okay, you know what? You got to kill me. Just so we make it straight. And every time I do one of these podcasts, I say to myself, is this one going to get me killed? We bring in the Chinese. They don't like that.
No.
We give Trump's plan away with the entrapment. They don't like that. They don't like you seeing anything coming. Because if anybody who can't see anything coming, it's Trump. You think they saw Iran coming and how it would be done? Oh, no one expected us to bomb. They didn't bomb, in AU, Saudis, or we're not going to go to these other countries, Syria and so forth. You didn't? Well, you should have. That's what we call planning. Reminds me of the fucking terrorists. Oh, you mean they're illegal? Listen, if there's anyone who fucked with you, which is a terrorist from uh, taxing you, it's a war that blew up your interest rates and your oil. And the important thing with oil is it's a product of almost everything. For instance, even if it's a banana that goes into a truck, that truck is used as fuel to deliver it. Everything is priced. You're being taxed and ripped off at every possible angle. And what they wanted you to buy Bitcoin. And Trump family owns a Bitcoin company. Oh, you know what the two little fucking shitheads did, sons? They bought into a drone company.
The drones, yeah.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, Pelosi, you talk about Pelosi, what was that? We're running out of drones. Don't worry, we've got a company. So was that everything we had, Crash?
Yeah. Before you go, do you want to mention anything about the new venture you're taking on
With
with?
Victor Hugo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go on Victor Hugo, the artist, not I think it's a French. Was he an artist too? Anyhow,
I believe maybe. Yeah, I have to. They when you look it up online, you get the original guy.
the artist,
But
right.
Victor Hugo is Victor Hugo Vaca. I think his last name is
Oh,
Vaca
okay. All right.
Jr.
Well, we're next month we're scheduling 2 shows a week. So you got me and Crash 1 show a week, and you got me and Victor 2 shows a week.
Well, I think is Victor biweekly, like every other week.
Oh, maybe you were right.
I
I,
forget.
I I think it did say biweekly.
So yeah,
Bi-weekly could be too. Well, you know what? How about this? I'll be on his show. We'll know more as it goes. I think April 2nd is my first day back, and I had done a show with him, and I got along fine with him. And I think a lot of things that he had, I related to. In fact, some things that he said, he questioned, I give him the answers to. So it
right.
may be a,
And
uh,
he's dealt with a lot of people behind the scenes too. He's got a lot of
yeah,
connections. And he's a man that wanted to have you on for a long time, but it was getting a hold of you is not easy. So
right.
he went on a few shows, talked about you, and they shut him down. They said, no, we're not talking about Mike Gill, or Flynn. So he was,
Right.
calling out Flynn. So I don't know. I don't know much about him.
But
I
you're
just
right
know,
about the connections, and
yeah,
that's what we need. He was on the show with
McGregor.
Colonel McGregor,
Yeah.
and McGregor's on all the time with Tucker Carlson.
And like you, he's going to go on a show regardless. Stu Peters, whatever. It's views. It's we're getting out there, and
Yeah.
however it plays out, it plays out. It's not. It's his opinions on his show. I mean, what he does is his. He's going to see what happens, and that's what with you with Tucker.
We were having a conversation. He's going to have opinions in a conversation as he has them with other people. But with the connections, and that's what you want me to do too, is get to as many people as possible. And these people, I think he lives in Georgia, the province in Russia, Georgia. So, and he was from there, from China. So
Yeah.
he's in a place that may be a little safer for him to speak
Mm-hmm.
freely.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's what we need. We need people that we can talk freely to. So, in other words, I felt comfortable doing this
Yeah.
because I could
See
speak.
how it goes.
And you know what? I did speak freely.
Yeah.
And I let him know something that he had said on another podcast that it was troubled him, that I gave him a direct explanation about why. So, in other words, I think, we can help each other.
Right.
So, we're
Yeah.
making progress. Listen,
Yeah.
one time I blow up, we're in the history books. This will come out, and I'll tell you why. It's the best story anybody's ever written or seen. I know what I lived it. And I know there's things that'll come out thereafter. Because it's the DOJ knows who I am. Cartels know who I am. They'll use me as blackmail, the people coming after them. But just know, too many people know this story, and it's too good of a story for it not to come out. Now, I'd like it to come out sooner than later,
Right.
and it's not like I ain't pushing the fucking envelope. I invite an assassination. I'm pushing the envelope. I even say to myself, fuck me, if they kill me, this even gets better.
Don't give him any ideas.
Oh, they already have those ideas, which makes me think the reason why I am is there's a blackmail piece here. There's a deal being made here. They're going to come in my direction, which is why I'm extra careful on who I talk to, because I know what happens next,
Yeah.
and it's going to happen sooner than later. So we made it through another podcast.
Yeah.
Hopefully more in the future. But you watch what we said has come true. Tell me what we missed. We told you this little cow gone. Medicaid, Medicare, Pandora's box. Open the Pandora's box. You get an idea how hard it is to open up all these states' Medicaid plans, and they bring in Dr. Oz. I mean, how many people are we taking off? I mean, we got actors, we got podcasters, we got media people becoming our government.
Yeah.
Dr. fucking Oz? How's that, Oz? You didn't figure out this was going on across the country while we're going broke? And this evidence may be also tied to what happens with that entrapment. Because all of a sudden I get pulled into this expanded situation. That situation could be a problem with the cartels because the DOJ is sitting with that. Now think about this, always be them. If I'm the DOJ and I'm sitting with this cover up of the trillions they robbed you, you know what I'm saying? Fuck me. This could go bad. And listen, I'm steering the car and it's where I'm going. Even when I say the entrapment of Trump, I'm going to the DOJ with it. And then I have the evidence with Flynn to the DOJ from the, December 18th, 2020 and the Arizona meeting. This is a slam fucking dunk. I mean, give it a week. Tuckeroni will be on ABC.
Yeah. Fox
Give
News.
it a week. Right.
CNN. He'll be there first. CNN. That's where
You
they put all
you.
the whatever they are, scammers.
Right. So Okay.
Okay, Mike.
I'll talk to you later, Crash.
Bye.